in this up on the YouTube channel as well. And then we'll turn it over to you to take us through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
recording started.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Hmm?
So my name is Novo Manna, and welcome to another session of the Technology Review Council. Today we have a, I was going to say repeat offender, but that's not the way to look at it. We have a repeat vendor, and that did come out the same, right? But Srini has been with us before showing us Aigo, and it was probably, I would say, almost a year ago that we had the pleasure of seeing and had a demonstration of what I consider to be at the time one of the very, very best artificial intelligence tools I've ever seen. So we've invited Srini back for lots of reasons, improvements. He's tackled some interesting things, and he's now going to show us the use of Aigo in a recruitment setting, which if you've been reading the papers, looking at headlines, it seems like artificial intelligence and HR are now coupled together, and the world of recruiting is at the center of that. So, Srini, I'll turn it over to you. Again, I would ask folks, for the purposes of the crowd as it grows, if you don't mind turning off your video, but I will be monitoring the chat. Please do not hesitate to kind of raise your hand or unmute and ask a question, because I know that Srini would like to hear from you. So go for it, sir.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Really appreciate it. And I want to thank every attendee for your time. And I'd like to make this very interactive, probably for the first half an hour to 40 minutes. I'll take you through our value proposition and I'll show you a demo of Aigo, a newer one, something that we are working with the customer, and then open it up for any kind of Q&A in the last 15, 20 minutes. So with that, allow me to share my screen. Let me go ahead and present the. So are you able to see my screen? Okay. I'm going to
assume seeing your screen.
You are.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Great. So
looking good.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have with Aigo is world's first and only chatbot with a brain. Right now, what is the problem that we are solving here? What we're hearing from customers across the board, very large customers and medium-sized customers, pretty much, everyone we are talking to, and we are talking to primarily large enterprise customers, $1 billion or more in revenue. This is what we are hearing. Their user experience is highly undesirable. It's very scripted conversations that they are going through. Their users are frustrated and they're spending a lot of money, and the adoption is lowering. So the question is, what happened? Where did it go wrong? Why the chatbots that have been introduced to the market 10 years back, and they have spent billions of dollars, why aren't they working? So here it is, right? So when you look at the space of these intelligent assistants, virtual assistants, chatbots, whatever way you want to refer to them, there are 3,000 companies in this category, right? So when you look at the consumer market, you have Alexa, Siri, Cortana, so many of them in the consumer market. And then when you look at the enterprise market, you have IBM Watson, Clink, LivePerson. Between the two, you're looking at 3,000 companies. Now, none of them have a brain. Now, why is that important? Well, it is only through the brain you get basic cognitive abilities that are fundamental to have a meaningful conversation, which is what we have listed on the right-hand side. And these are the fundamental cognitive abilities. As an example, number one is ability to remember. So this is what we call conversational memory. As you speak to somebody, you remember what they said, and then as I'm speaking to you and you're learning new stuff from me, I'm learning new stuff from you, and we remember that inherently. And throughout this session, or when we meet again a week from now, a month from now, we use that memory to continue our discussion. So without that ability to remember what somebody said, you just cannot have an ongoing meaningful conversation, which is a fundamental cognitive skill. And you would get that only with the brain. That's number one. Number two, they cannot learn any new information interactively from you. You can try this with your Alexa, Siri, Cortana, or any of them that you have access to, you can tell them, my favorite fruit is papaya. And then you ask them, what's my favorite fruit? They cannot answer that. They do not have ability to learn any new information interactively from you, and therefore they cannot have meaningful conversation because that's a core cognitive ability again. That's number two. Number three, none of them have ability to understand context or complex sentences. Here is an example. You can talk to Siri and you can ask Siri, hey Siri, tell me weather. It tells you weather. Beautiful, it works. Now you say, hey Siri, don't tell me weather. It will still end up telling you weather. And then you say, blah, 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 weather. It will still end up telling you weather. So it really does not matter what you're saying. It is looking for that keyword weather. The moment it hears the keyword weather, what it is doing is, statistically, when most people use that keyword in a sentence, they wanted weather. So I'm going to give you weather. If that is how you and I are having conversation right now, where I respond to you based on a keyword that you are using in a sentence, and then what most people wanted when they use that keyword, in less than 2 minutes, you're going to say, Srini, we're not having conversation here. But that is how the entire, these 3,000 companies are going about solving this problem. It's actually a lot more inherent than that, which is all of these companies, they use machine learning and deep learning technology to solve this problem of natural language interaction. And almost 20 years back, we have concluded it is absolutely the wrong technology to use. We have tremendous respect for the technology. You can use that for speech recognition, image recognition, and many other things like that, or pattern recognition, things like that. But you cannot apply the technology to intelligent natural language interaction. Let me give you an example. Let's say, let's pick a number. I'll pick 5,460. You see, the value of that number does not change based on the context, whether I'm using it as a quantity, as a rate, as a total, or as a subtotal. 5460 is 5460, irrespective of the context. But if I give you a word club, without understanding the context, you would not know whether I'm talking about golf club, dance club, book club, tea club. There are many, many clubs available. So the point I'm making is the technology that works wonderfully well for the numbers, you cannot apply that technology to the language and somehow assume that this technology figured out hundreds of thousands of nuances that language has. So I'm making a bold statement here. Not only none of these companies, and you're talking about pretty much any big company you can think of is in this category, from IBM to Facebook to Google to all of them, right? Not only they cannot do what we are able to do today, they can never do what we are able to do because they are going down the wrong path of using machine learning, deep learning, and high compute to solve this problem. It's like throwing a dictionary at a 5-year-old child and expecting somehow that the child is capable of writing a sonnet. That's not going to happen without the cognitive abilities, without that learning, understanding, all of that. So none of them can reason with you or even manage a meaningful conversation. Therefore, they cannot personalize the interaction for one individual. I don't know how long, Joseph, you've been using Alexa or Siri, but I guarantee you, if I ask your Alexa or Siri, does Joseph like coffee or tea? It cannot answer that. Same thing with no. If I ask your Alexa or Siri, does no like Coke or Pepsi? It cannot answer that. There is absolutely no personalization going on. So these are massive cognitive gaps that exist in the marketplace. And this is what we have been working on for almost 20 plus years. We've been developing it. We've been commercializing it. We've been perfecting it. While Aigo continues to hyper-personalize the experience for each individual, and we can do this at scale. So whether you have 200 employees or 2 million employees, it really does not matter. Each Aigo is hyper-personalized for that individual based on their historical interactions, based on their current context and current needs, and Aigo is there 24/7, ready to serve them. Now, why is this important, the personalization? We believe personalized conversations are core for human engagement, and it is time right now to bring that to the business. In other words, isn't it time that it becomes core to your business to engage, whether it is your employees or your customers? So the difference between Aigo and the rest of the chatbots is really between like a chalk and a cheese. I don't want to go through each one of them. I just want to get your attention to two of them. The second one, training data, right? So with all of the chatbots, you literally have to train the system with gazillions of data. And that's a statistically, pattern matching approach, which is like blah, 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 weather, blah, 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 umbrella, all of them, they open the weather application, irrespective of the deeper understanding. You have to collect a lot of data, you have to tag the data, label that, and train the system. So we moved away from all of that. So you would be surprised to know that not only we moved away from that, we do not use any machine learning, deep learning at all. So within our company, we do not have any machine learning, deep learning experts. That's number one. And over 70% of our researchers are either linguists or cognitive psychologists, which is a radically different approach compared to how everyone else is solving this problem. So what we did is, instead of kind of moving towards the big data, we moved towards ontologies. We teach Aigo concepts very similar to how humans learn, and then expand on that. Let's say we need to teach Aigo about mother, brother, father, sister. We teach Aigo what a relationship is between two human beings. And then once we teach Aigo that, and then we teach Aigo specific relationships, once Aigo gets an understanding of that, we can really upload like 10,000 relationships one human could have with another human. So we move towards ontologies or concepts versus dealing with massive volumes of data. The second point I want to get your attention to is scrutability, which is whenever something does not work or works incorrectly, the answer from rest of the chatbot companies, the 3,000 companies, is, oh, we just need to train it with more data. It's a black box system. You don't know why something works or why something does not work. And you just hope when you train it with more data, it doesn't break anything that was already working. Well, with Aigo, that is not the case. You actually have access to Aigo's brain. You can open Aigo's brain and you can look into Aigo's brain. That's why it's fully scrutable. Now you say, oh, okay, Aigo is missing this piece of information. Let's add that. As soon as you add that, boom, it starts working. Or it could be, oh, Aigo incorrectly recorded this information. As soon as you fix that, as soon as you correct that, boom, it starts working. Right? So it is fully scrutable and you have access to Aigo's brain. This is the reason why we say no amount of effort that you put on candles would lead you to a light bulb. It's a paradigm shift type thinking because everyone else approaches this as an engineering problem when it is actually a cognitive problem. And once you identify that as a cognitive problem, you redefine the problem, and then you go about executing it. And during the execution, you still need some of the best engineering principles, but you don't start off with engineering problem, collecting a lot of data, all of that stuff. That's not our approach at all. Right? So when you go to these chatbot conferences, what you hear is there are 5 levels of chatbots. What they do not talk about is there's absolutely no path to go from level 3 to level 4. Rest of the world, entire world, I'm talking about big names to small names and all kinds of names. They're all either at level 1 or level 2, or only less than a handful of them are in level 3. Level 1 is where you trigger, when something happens, trigger an action, and then you say, okay, you got mail or you got, your order is shipped, whatever it is. That's the basic version of it. And level 2 is more of an FAQ type assistant that answers your questions as long as you have similar utterances like blah, 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 umbrella. It's not, okay, you're talking about weather, you need to know what the weather is like. That's what it makes that guess. And at least it could do that in just certain utterances. Now, in level 3, where you're actually filling out a form, like booking your hotel or booking your airline, that you can do that in level 3. But beyond that, even within those, how they do it is still wrong in many ways, but at least they could do some scenarios within that. But when you want to go beyond that, which is where you're talking about interactive learning, short-term, long-term memory, reasoning, they fall apart. And this is where Aigo shines. And to the best of our knowledge, we're the only ones who can say this and who can do this. We are in level 4. Having said that, I do not want to give impression as if Aigo is at human level. It is not. As an example, metacognition is a skill that humans inherently have. As an example, I know what I'm thinking right now. I can get what you are thinking. I may be right, I may be wrong. I can still take a guess. That requires a level of self-awareness that Aigo doesn't have. But we know what we need to do to keep moving the needle from where we are, which is at level 4, to level 5. Level 5, you're getting into autonomous assistance. But within level 4, we can still solve so many problems that none of the chatbots are able to solve. So I want to give you a quick update in terms of what happened since we last met, right? So last year, probably around the same time, we had this discussion. Till date, now we have three customers, three large customers, very large customers, one of the largest life insurance company, one of the largest auto insurance and in general membership and insurance company. I don't want to name it, most people know. So they're working with us, and also one of the largest e-commerce company in the gifting space. They're all working with us. We went live with the e-commerce company, very, very successful, and they own 16 different brands, and they want Aigo to be in front of all of their brands. But in addition to that, we now have another half a dozen to 10 customers that are kind of ready to sign up. And one common thing among all these customers is they've all tried to make the rest of the chatbots work for their organization, and then they failed. After spending millions of dollars, after spending few years, they failed. Now they're coming to work with us, and those are the customers whom we are actively engaged right now. Now the question is, how are we able to do this? What is the secret sauce? How did we, accomplish this, right? So what we did with Aigo is we created a brain for Aigo that works similar to how human mind works. So when you see something new, when you hear something new, you're trying to make sense of it. You're thinking, what do I know about this person? What do I know the topic this person is talking about? You're essentially firing on all your cylinders, trying to connect all the dots. And whatever does not make sense, you ask additional questions to disambiguate. Only then you can assimilate this new information into your existing knowledge to be able to speak intelligently about the new information that you have just captured, right? This is exactly what we have done with Aigo's brain. We call this integrated cognitive architecture. So what you're seeing in here is the Aigo's brain. So each circle here represents a faculty of Aigo's brain. As an example, Aigo has memory. And by memory, we mean very similar to humans, short-term memory, which is what Aigo learns in a particular session. Everything is part of the current session. That's Aigo's short-term memory. And everything that Aigo has learned so far until Aigo got to that current session, that's part of Aigo's long-term memory. They're the parsing engine that goes almost 15 levels deeper than Stanford parser. All these faculties are deeply integrated into each other. Let me give you an example. You say something like, Bob is not coming along. You say that to any of the chatbot, immediately their response is, I'm sorry, I do not understand. I'm sorry, I cannot help you. You say that to Aigo, here is what happens inside Aigo's brain. Immediately it looks at the short-term memory and says, have we discussed about any Bob at all during this session? So Aigo is trying to resolve which Bob we are talking about from the current session, right? Let's say if there is no Bob that we talked about. Now Aigo goes into long-term memory, and then it is trying to answer the question, have we ever discussed about any Bob at all in any of our prior conversations? That's the long-term memory is trying to draw which Bob we're talking about. Because we said Bob is not coming along, that not coming along triggers the inference engine. Inference engine kicks in and says, that means we are going somewhere. Where are we going? Are we talking about work? Are we talking personal life? And then Aigo starts gathering evidence from each one of these faculties of brain to conclude a hypothesis, right? So now it says, oh, Bob the family dog is not coming along to the picnic we are planning to go this weekend. Or let's say if it finds two Bobs that match the criteria, now it comes back and says, did you mean Bob here? Did you mean Bob there? So this is where we move into what we call evidence-based hypothesis, similar to how human mind works. So we're trying to gather evidence from everything we know as we are firing on all our cylinders. Now either we conclude a hypothesis or we come back and ask additional questions before concluding the hypothesis. So this is how this is the reason why we are able to do what we are doing. So what is happening behind the scenes is this brain is a purpose-built knowledge graph that is 100 times faster than any commercially available graph database. So each user gets their own Aigo, and each Aigo comes to you with these three layers. So there is brain in each one of these three layers. I'll go through each one, right? So the red code that you're seeing, this is where Aigo comes to the table with the brain. And what that means is Aigo brings the general knowledge about the world, people, places, things, like photosynthesis, gravity, relationships, mother, father, brother, sister, all of this stuff. In addition to that, Aigo is also bringing cognitive skills to the table, which is ability to understand, ability to disambiguate, ability to have long-term, short-term memory, ability to adapt, ability to reason. All these things are part of Aigo's red core. So every customer of Aigo, whether we are working with an e-commerce company or insurance company or any company at all, healthcare company, everyone gets the same red core. Think of the red core as if you're hiring a smartest intern off the street. They're really good in their general knowledge and cognitive skills. They don't know much about your business. And that is when we end up creating a brain for your organization in the blue layer, right? So in the blue layer, what we do primarily are two things, right? Number one, we teach Aigo ontologies, the concepts, the terms, the context of those terms. We teach Aigo all of those things as part of the Aigo's ontology. And remember, I'm using the word teach, not train, and that is kind of intentional because the moment you use train, you're looking at massive volumes of data. So we're teaching Aigo ontologies, right? Once we do that, we're in parallel. We're also connecting Aigo for any number of your internal systems, external systems, or even new tools that you have. So Aigo can write the data into any system, can read the data from any system, or even pack the data to any third-party system and let it bring that output back to the user. I'll give you an example. I'll tell you what Aigo is not. Aigo is not a number crunching machine. So let me give you an example. Let's say you ask Aigo, what is the propensity of this customer purchasing this product B? Now, Aigo is not a predictive engine. But Aigo understands what you asked. As long as we integrated Aigo with a predictive tool that you trust, now Aigo can use the tool similar to humans. Now Aigo will gather the input that it needs for the tool from the user. And in real time, as you are talking to Aigo, Aigo would provide that information to the predictive engine, let the predictive engine crunch the numbers, spit the data out. Now Aigo would come back and say, hey, no, you want to position product X, not product B. The propensity of purchasing product X is over 90%, but the product that you wanted to sell, which is product B, is actually under 30%. So this is what Aigo can do. So we are carving out a very niche for ourselves, which is we are the user interface and the conversational AI for anyone and everyone, starting with employees and then customers, right? But Aigo can read the data, write the data, use any tools, very similar to humans. But here is the biggest kicker that our customers get out of this. What happens is at the end of the day, we're not creating multiple chatbots. So here is a real example of a customer whom we are working with. So what they said is, look, Srini, we went down this path 3.5 years back. And we have 200 people working full time. We spent over $50 million. Now we ended up with 14 bots and 15 problems. I said, what do you mean? Well, anytime we wanted a bot, the bot company created a bot. Now we have 14 bots that do not talk to each other. My auto loan bot does not know anything about my home loan bot. My home loan bot does not know anything about my savings account and CD account, and none of them know anything about my wealth and portfolio management. So it becomes a nightmare for me to manage these multiple chatbots anytime that they in a change in the business rule. But the 15th problem is even bigger. Out of 66 million retail customers we have, less than 100,000 of them are using it. That's like 0.04% adoption. They're like, where did we go wrong? Well, to start with, you initiated the project with a chatbot that doesn't have a brain. So it doesn't lend itself to a brain scenario. What we mean by that is when they work with Aigo, when organizations work with Aigo, we are not creating multiple chatbots. So for the first use case, as we create the blue layer, we are creating a cognitive brain for your organization. We call this enterprise brain. Now we define the ontologies and we create the APIs, everything that is needed for the first use case. Now, when we go to the second use case, the first question we ask is, what new ontologies do we need? What new APIs do we need that's not already in the brain? Whatever is not there, we just add it to the brain, we activate the second use case. So all these 20, 30, 40 use cases, they're not 20, 30, 40 different chatbots. They're all extensions of the same brain that we are creating for your organization. So at the end of the day, we end up delivering one cognitive enterprise brain for your organization that continues to learn and evolve and grow. Right? That's the blue layer. And the last one is the green layer. This is where users can have their own, their personal history, their current context, their preferences, all those things. So when I talked about, Joe liking, Coke or Pepsi or coffee or tea, all that information is stored in that green layer. You can literally ask Aigo, hey, Aigo, can you give me Timbuktu? Aigo says, I don't understand what Timbuktu is. You say, oh, I refer to my employee productivity report at Timbuktu. Now you say, anytime you ask for Timbuktu, Aigo will give you your employee productivity report. That's the level of hyper-personalization that's available in the green layer. And it is because of that, we are able to deliver basically scale the application, Aigo, for millions of users at no time, because all of them are using the same application, which is blue layer is the same for all of them, but then the green layer is where you have your own personalization. So this is what allows us to scale for millions of users and also multiple applications within that enterprise. Right? So now I want to give you a feel for the technology by showing you a demo of our technology. So give me 1 second. Let me kind of show you. So we're also right now working with one of the largest staffing company. I do not want to name them. We developed this, pretty much every customer we are working with, they're doing something game-changing, so I am under strong NDA to not disclose either their names or what we're doing for them, but I'll give you a feel for the type of applications that we're creating, for them. So this is a personal recruiting assistant that we're building for them. This company is a $24 billion staffing company, so here it is.
Hi, this is Aigo, your personal recruiting assistant. How may I help you today?
I'm looking for a job.
I would be glad to help you. May I start with your first and last name?
Scott Nelson.
Scott, may I have your email address?
snelson82@gmail.com.
Scott, I see that you are currently employed with us and your current assignment is ending in 2 weeks. Would you want me to help you find a new assignment?
Yes.
Scott, based on your current skills and experience, you would be a great fit for the following positions: Senior Account Representative, Boston, Massachusetts; Client Services Representative, Lowell, Massachusetts; Customer Success Manager, Beverly, Massachusetts. Would you like to learn more about one of these positions?
Yes, I would be interested in the Customer Success Manager position.
Great. Just a couple of quick questions, Scott. Based on your current location, do you mind traveling 1 hour by car 2 days a week to the office?
Not at all.
Great. Also, Scott, do you have any experience using CRM tools such as Salesforce?
Yes, I have been using Salesforce for over 2 years.
This is exciting, Scott. You seem to be a great fit. Shall we schedule an interview? Do any of these times work? Times below are in Eastern Standard Time based on your location. 1 Tuesday, March 17th, 2021 at 10:30 a.m. 2 Wednesday, March 18th, 2021 at 1:30 p.m. 3 Thursday, March 19th, 2021 at 8:30 a.m.
Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. would be great.
Great. I have scheduled you for Wednesday, March 18th, 2021 at 1:30 p.m. and emailed you a calendar invite. I will notify you prior to your interview. Is there anything else I can do for you?
All set.
Great. It has been a pleasure assisting you, Scott. Good luck on your interview next Wednesday.
Yeah. So just to give you a flavor of the kind of things that this customer is thinking about, when it comes to Aigo. That's just one of the 20 different applications that they have in mind for Aigo. Here, the example that I've shown where Aigo becomes a dedicated and hyper-personalized recruiting assistant for Scott. So Scott can talk to it at any point of time. It's like, assigning a dedicated recruiting assistant, human assistant for the candidate, except here it's a digital assistant. It learns, it adapts, and it gives you information, and that interaction continues to grow. Now we're doing similar kind of things with other customers, where so kind of broad categorization of our applications. Number one is customer experience. This is everything to do with how you are going to handle your customers, your end customers, whoever that is. external stakeholders who are invested in your products, in your success, all of that. And the whole point there is to increase customer loyalty. Thereby, you increase the wallet share and you transform them from being a customer to brand evangelist. And on the employee side, we're doing the same thing, especially pandemic has accelerated this particular application. Now we are in discussions with one of the largest pharmaceutical companies with 300,000 employees, and they want to provide a personalized HR assistant for each one of their employees. And this is where they want to see the productivity of the employee go high, engagement of the employee go high, and also well-being. They're offering many, many different kind of health choices that they'd like to offer for their employees, and they want them to take advantage of it. And all of it is accessible with a dedicated and hyper-personalized assistant that's available for you 24/7. And you can communicate with Aigo through talk or text. And primarily right now, we are using text-based applications. And if we want voice, we can also integrate it with any of your existing speech recognition systems. So it could be if you have a question on the benefits, or if you have a question on a particular company policy procedure, it really does not matter whether it is screening related, onboarding, learning, growth, succession. Really does not matter, all of these things. So we teach Aigo once of all these, your employee handbook, everything is taught to Aigo once. Once we do that, we can make as many copies of Aigo. If you have 10,000 employees, we can make 10,000 of them, and we assign them as they start interacting. So initially, the green layer is empty, and as they start interacting, Aigo starts hyper-personalizing experience for that application, for that user. Right? So this is how we continue to grow. So, some of the Gartner, I follow Gartner very closely, and what we learned just this week is they're predicting almost 50% of the knowledge workers will need and would be using virtual assistant by 2025, in about 4 years. And employee experience is at the top of the priorities for HR leadership across the board, across the industries. So this is something that we have seen, and Aigo would play a part, a role in some areas, very big role or a smaller role in each one of those areas, impacting the employee experience. And here are some of the stuff. I could not name the customers. I just want to kind of give you a feel for the type of experiences that we are delivering. And we went live with the e-commerce company 2 weeks before Valentine's Day, and now they decided that they want Aigo to be going live on all the 16 different brands. They own 16 different brands, and they were holding off. And now that they saw the volume, how elegantly Aigo is able to address long conversations, long meaningful conversations. Now it says, okay, now we want to do this across all the brands. And then we're super excited about that. So a couple of quick things about my business partner. I look at his name is Peter Watts. He's the creator and our CEO. And I look at Peter as Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, and I say that with utmost humility. The reason being, he's a high school dropout who never finished high school, but he started his first software company in his early 20s. He took that company from zero to IPO in 7 years. So when he sold that company, he had enough time and money in his hands. That's when he started focusing on intelligence. What is intelligence? How different is human intelligence from animal intelligence? How do kids learn? Epistemology, cognitive psychology. Having done that for 5 years, he started his own R&D company in 2002. So he's the guy who coined the term artificial general intelligence. So what you hear about AI today is not the real AI. The real AI was all about creating a machine that can think and reason and learn like a human. And today's AI is all about, let's collect a lot of data. Let's see the patterns within this data. Let's see if we can apply some of these patterns to the problem that we are trying to solve. So this is what they call narrow AI or weak AI. These are actually technical terms, right? The strong AI or real AI is all about creating, it's not the external programmer intelligence, it is creating that intelligence within the system itself. So that's why, when you look at our team, they're teaching Aigo how to think about a problem. So once we, teach Aigo how to think about a problem, and it can solve many, many problems, on its own. So this is how we are going about building a brain, for Aigo versus just dumping a lot of data, identifying the patterns. Having said that, in 2008, Peter actually created the first commercial product. That's the first generation of Aigo. It's a company called SmartAction.ai. Very, very successful. We used to call that IVR with the brain. Now we are calling Aigo a chatbot with the brain. But what Peter did is in 2013, he hired a management team to run the company. He remained as executive chairman, but he wanted to go back and develop the product, increase the IQ of Aigo. So last 7 years, we've been in stealth mode, 12 people working full-time, really cranking up the IQ of Aigo. And towards the end of 2019, in the beginning, just before pandemic, we got out of the stealth mode. That's when we started talking to customers to engage with them. I'm thrilled to say that pretty much every customer we are talking to, they get super excited, and then we go about, do you have a real use case, a real problem that you want us to solve that only Aigo can solve? If other chatbots can solve it, then that's not the problem that we are interested in. So we are interested in high value problem that requires a brain and not just a pattern matching approach. And we're also not interested in doing just a POCs or pilots for the sake of pilot. As long as it's a production pilot where we are solving a real problem in a smaller scale, that's something that we are interested. So that's how we are going about filtering the right type of customers whom we can work with. And it's been pretty phenomenal in terms of the market response. So here is how I would summarize it. Why Aigo? It's the only chatbot with a brain, and at the end of the day, we deliver an enterprise brain for your organization, unlike multiple siloed chatbots, which is what everyone else does. And it has human-like cognition, so it is not at human level. Right? I cannot just go and replace a financial analyst or anything like that. Somebody was asking this question a few days back. No, that's not the case. But we have human-like cognition, and we'll continue to grow that. And one of the best things that our customers like about us is we are not a SaaS company. We are not hosting it somewhere else. We are putting Aigo behind your firewall by natively integrating into your existing applications. That makes it super fast for you to access it, to deliver it. Every piece of information that Aigo collects within the green layer, within the blue layer, is all 100% yours. Ultimately, the whole point is to fundamentally transform your employee experience or your customer experience and increase that loyalty and stickiness, so increase their productivity and make them as brand evangelists. That's essentially what we're going after. So I want to thank you for your time, and I want to open it up for Q&A.
Terrific presentation, Srini. Thank you very, very much. I have a couple of questions, but let me move to the audience side first and let them have at it. Any particular questions you want to ask of Srini? Certainly, feel free to open up your mic and just ask directly. We're beyond the presentation, so we're good to go. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, hi, this is Roy. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Go ahead, Roy.
Yes.
Be my guest here.
Okay, it's what I just keyed in. So most AI, the development is a function in part of increasing computing power. So as computing power increases, we would expect it to get smarter. Given your approach, is Aigo also a function of increasing computing power, or is it just more intelligent algorithms?
Yeah. So it is actually native. So we do not need any of the computing power. Human mind, we have, I don't know, a tiny fraction of the compute power of a nuclear reactor. And they're right now using almost like 3 nuclear reactors type of compute for OpenAI, which is trying to solve the same problem we are solving, yet they're falling short. If I give you a simple sentence like I read a book on a horse, not a single chatbot on the planet can make sense of it. Were you sitting on a horse while reading a book, or were you reading a book about the horse? Right? Let me give you another example. John had spaghetti with Mary. John had spaghetti with meatballs. John had spaghetti with chopsticks. So all these 3 sentences, they're exactly the same except one word. First one was Mary, second one is meatballs, and third one is chopsticks. So Mary is a companion, and meatballs is another food that you eat spaghetti with. Chopsticks is a tool. So that requires the reasoning capability. So we do not believe compute is not going to make any difference whatsoever. when it comes to understanding the language and reasoning. So that because we have taken the complete opposite direction, and it's not even the algorithm. So it really comes down to how you can introduce cognitive capabilities into the brain of this thing. So you need to start with the brain, and then you need to say how you can introduce the cognitive capabilities. We're not talking about compute. We're not talking about, I know the word even cognitive is also pretty abused with many of the marketing companies of large marketing organizations of within the large companies. But we use it in a very real sense that ability to understand, read, and all of these things. So unless you introduce those elements, we do not think it will ever work. And to the best of our knowledge, we're the only ones who are doing it. So no, so it's not in a better algorithm, and it's not the better compute. It really comes down to had your approach taken consideration into introducing cognitive capabilities into a brain that you are using to make this work.
So you're saying Aigo will just get smarter over time without any R&D, right?
Correct. And we are not unleashing Aigo onto the world like Microsoft did with Tay, right? Pretty much all these companies, and within 48 hours, it learned all the bad stuff about the world. It started bullying people. Mm-hmm. So no, that's not how we want to go about it. So also, we are not. Yeah, it's pretty kind of out there story. Also, this is the reason why we are not going after consumer market right now, right? So we are going after customers, enterprise customers that are specific to that domain, whether it's insurance or e-commerce and all that. That's where we can teach all of the ontologies that are required. Once we do it for one insurance company, anything that is not specific to that particular company, as an example right now, because we work with one e-commerce company, I already know what a shopping cart is, what an order is, what an order item is, and what is the tax is, what the shipping address, what the billing address. We know all of this stuff. That's generic knowledge that's available. So any e-commerce company that we work with after that becomes that much easier. Anything that's proprietary, we will not share it with anyone else. So this is how we are going about it. So eventually, probably over a period of next 5 to 10 years, we will go after the consumer market. By then, we want to make sure Aigo has a lot more kind of the knowledge across multiple domains and all of that stuff. That's also the reason why we are sticking to domain-specific, industry-specific type applications.
So Srini, you do have a question from Bobby, and I will ask her to simply open up her mic and ask it. But I want to say, in a sense, when she's done with that, I want to change that question a little bit different. But Bobby, please go ahead.
Hi there, Srini. I was here last year with you.
Hello, Bobby.
Hey. Yeah. I just want to know about the back end. I mean, is there ability to access the data out of the back end and do qualitative and quantitative kind of research?
Absolutely. Yeah, great question, right? So Aigo is dynamically learning and evolving, from all the interactions that it has with the users, right? But what most of our customers are doing is periodically, whether it is hourly or every day, however frequently they want, we are pushing the data out into their own system, whether it is Splunk, whether it is a Dynamo database, whatever it is they want, they have within their organization. We are pushing the data out. What they're doing there is that now that is where machine learning, deep learning stuff really plays a big part. Now they're doing all kinds of analysis of the data, and then using that to gain some operational insight. As an example, the e-commerce company that we went live with, now they are, what the chairman of the board said is, what, Srini, for the first time we are getting to know the consciousness of our customer in real time, right? So now they're using that to determine what kind of campaigns they need to run in a particular zip code or particular city. They're making those kind of operational decisions based on all the conversations that they are getting, from Aigo. So we also do a lot of those analysis. We send it to you. But then you know what you want to be looking for, and you can always do further analysis. So that's the reason. Not only we do the analysis, we also share every piece of information that we gather to any other database that you want, so you can do further analysis. Absolutely, yes.
Real quickly, Srini, just because I know no one wants to ask you a question. How about the APIs? Could we link this both to something like an LMS and link it to a community online community, interactive community kind of environment, and have that data both go into the same kind of database, our database coming out of it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
help me
we would
understand.
have, we
So
would have it in an LMS for people who were taking classes, and they would belong to a community of learners that would have ongoing continuing education, have their profiles, have them in asynchronous and synchronous chat kind of environment. So you'd have the chatbot kind of in both places, right? You'd have it in the
Yeah.
initial course for the LMS, and then you want to find out what they learned, you know? So you would have them in
Yeah,
there in
yeah.
the conversation, right?
Yeah,
With me?
so the answer is yes. Yeah, you can have that both as part of the community and also as part. Think of Aigo in that case as a Clippy. Now Aigo can interact. You can learn at your own pace whatever you're learning. Once we have APIs, we have integrated it with your system. So Aigo becomes deeply integrated with your existing application, whether it's an education application. In fact, right now, AR/VR applications, we are integrating that. And now it continues to learn what you know, and then it goes at your pace based on the rules that we have decided in terms of how you want to drive that conversation. The simple answer is yes.
Thank you.
So Srini, let me see, are there any other questions from the audience? I do have a number myself, so you know me well enough. So let's, extending a little bit what Bobby was asking, it strikes me that the people that are using Aigo this moment are really not necessarily, I mean, they're outbound for things like consumer, but I saw on your chart the employee experience. I'm curious, do you have any current clients using things for employee experience? And because of what I'm hearing more often than not is that people, because of COVID or remote working and so on, are feeling extremely dissociated. And when you're going to have me talk to a chatbot or a robot, if you will, that pushes me even further away. So I can't see. Well, maybe I can't see. Let me pose it differently. I see the value that Aigo could potentially provide, but I'm curious about the human's reaction to have to talk to something like Aigo.
Yeah, that's it's also kind of you're talking about kind of a trend that is shaping out there as we speak, that is accelerated by the pandemic. So what we are seeing is the human interaction is still really, really important, and nothing can replace that. But we can reduce the unnecessary or any kind of sensitive related anything at all, and also convenience for that matter, right? If you have an assistant that can give you answers for any question at any point of time, whether it is your 401k related, whether it is salary related, benefit related, company policy related, anything at all, or vacation, anything at all. Now you have that. You can get that answer without having to bombard your HR, because pandemic actually caused these HR people that overwhelmed by the number of requests that they're getting, especially in large organizations. So having said that, are we working with a customer on that? Absolutely yes. Have we gone live with it? The answer is no. We don't have it. Remember, this is our second year in terms of commercial year, second calendar year for our commercial. We are working with customers right now on those applications. Absolutely yes. And you will see them sometime later on this year or early next year to go live.
Well, and to your point, I think that's probably a metric you want to say is that whether I'm talking to a robot or not, if I'm getting my answers and I'm getting them when I need them as quickly as possible, I sometimes am much more frustrated talking to a human to explain my problem and not getting any answers and almost solving it for myself. So I think that's an interesting metric that would be maybe go back and revisit that in another year or so and see if, to me, that's a dramatic impact potentially, and maybe leverages out Aigo as being the kind of thing that you want in place, because it is answering the questions. It's just not another robot. So that being said, I'm looking at also some of the human resources trends that are suggesting that more and more interaction with the employee, let's say around performance. All the performance systems today are saying, well, let's not do things annually, let's not even do it monthly, let's do it weekly, daily, whatever. I could see Aigo being a very key point of that in kind of I'll call it the daily check-ins. How are you doing, Srini? What can I do for you? Are you having any problems? Kind of this agile approach to life, if you will, and managing the work without having to do that for the hundreds of people that I might have reporting to me. It strikes me that would be an interesting thing. Do you have anybody that's kind of bugging you on your client list that would look to something like that?
Yeah, we're actually building that one too. But the example that you gave, we're doing this for a healthcare company. They call this a Caregiver Companion. So you have a caregiver, and you have her mom and dad, and the caregiver also has her kids and her own family. So now we are having that interaction where there's Aigo with the mom, there's Aigo with the dad, there's also Aigo with the caregiver. Let's say the dad did not take his 10,000 steps. Mom, wakes up and talks to Aigo, and he says, I really don't feel like waking up this morning. Immediately, the mom's Aigo reaches out to, and dad's Aigo, both of them, they reach out to caregiver's Aigo, and they prompt the caregiver, look, your mom has trouble, even waking up this morning. She doesn't feel like it. She's not feeling so good this morning. And your dad did not take his 10,000 steps. Right. So immediately now, caregiver knows there is something wrong. She can take certain action, kind of thing. So absolutely, yeah. So that's something that is, and now this is just a tiny example, but we are able to do a wide range of things where we are integrating it with the glucometer, so we know, what their readings are, how many steps they have taken, all of these things, so we can give that comprehensive feedback to the caregiver, or even send it to the doctor, depending on the severity and the criticality or the urgency of the situation. So we're doing a lot of those things right now.
Yeah, and in fact, actually, you answered the next question I was going to go, but I want to take it. So in a sense, Aigo can become the new workflow, the center of things that are happening around it, and connecting people to solve the problem.
Yeah.
But it's the recognition that we know that there's a problem. I can figure out that I need to go to No versus Bobby, or whatever the case may be. And I love that idea, because to me, the interactive human perspective of a workflow that asks me questions, how can I help you? Oh, I'm having a problem, let's say I'm making a salary change or promoting something. Where do I go? Who do I talk to? Well, here's the policy, here's this, and here, let me connect you with, or let them know that you've got a problem. So that to me becomes a completely different thinking around workflows. Today we're programming kind of that one-dimensional. You do A, then you do B, then you do C, and you maybe have a feedback loop in there somewhere, but not very often. This is a very, very, very interesting perspective. So my question then becomes, could Aigo become a survey tool? Could Aigo be that check-in at the employee level, the kind of sentiment? How do I, instead of hitting the smiley face or the frowning face, I'm going to get an interaction with something like Aigo asking me, and then to Bobby's point, cultivating, collating, and actually saying, hey, I think you got a bit of a problem over here, or things are looking really good over here, or gee, you just launched a brand new benefits program and nobody seems to like it, whatever the case may be. So I see a really bright future for Aigo's, at least the mechanics of what you're doing, whether it's Aigo or some other thing from that. This is a very interesting and very different approach to the artificial intelligence world.
Absolutely. No. So we are actually doing some of those elements of surveying towards the end of our, let's say, whether it is a sales request or a service request with the e-commerce company. Towards the end of that, we ask them, did you like it, and can you rank it, and all of this stuff. So we are measuring for a customer, for a first-time customer who's using Aigo, are they coming back, right? And we are. Let me just say, customer is thrilled with the numbers in terms of what they are seeing. And then the more their customers are coming back to Aigo, that means there are less calls to their call center, less expensive, and now they actually have a relationship with Aigo. Now they can count on Aigo to be that go-to servicer for all their gifting needs, which is what they want to become.
Well, and as
So
I
they
was
have 20 million users.
yeah, as I was saying earlier about the performance, where, let's do more frequent check-ins. What I'm seeing survey tools are going, well, let's allow them to not only answer in an email, but maybe use visual and little frowny faces or text or whatever.
Yeah.
It's still not solving the problem. I think, again, this is a vastly different approach. The humanization and the personalization, I think, is pretty key in that one. So that's
that's why we called it hyper-personalized and dedicated assistant. Yeah, so it really knows your historical conversations, your preferences, your current context, current needs, and it uses all of that to serve your current goals.
And then the last one is this whole world of incidents reporting. I mean, we see chatbots more often than not. I call my Comcast support desk, and I answer a bunch of questions, and it says, have you bothered to reset your box? You can do that, or you can go to the website. Very, very one way. I could solve the problem myself.
Correct.
So are you seeing companies utilizing this maybe initially in that customer relationship?
Absolutely. So again, you're going to put this in the public domain, so I don't want to give the name. But we are addressing exact same situations right now as we speak. So yes,
cool.
So I expect to have some more success stories where we can share the names and the type of use cases, all of that, of customers, sometime next year. So we are working with many companies along those lines.
We will definitely bring you back to the Technology Review Council. Let me very quickly ask just a general sense, any further questions of Srini, or let's give Srini feedback. Anybody have some thoughts, just kind of gut feel? What have you seen and what do you like? I give it a big thumbs up. Anyone want to join in that one?
I think it's more sophisticated than any other chatbot I've seen. But I'm just, I've been playing online with the winner of the Lubner Prize, and that's pretty good actually. And I'm just wondering how your product stacks up against it. Number one, and number two, I'm wondering if you've ever applied for the Lubner Prize, because if you won it, it would give you a lot of credibility in the market.
Yeah. So the answer is no. We are not going down that path at all, because a lot of companies they go down that path, whether it is R&D product and they want to get the industry standards and things like that from primarily academia standpoint. So we are going after commercial customers who have problems in terms of having meaningful conversations with a chatbot. That's what they're struggling with 10 years later. So because we are ontology-centric, right, we can literally teach Aigo any kind of ontology that you want. That's why we are completely domain agnostic and industry agnostic. We can make many of those things work, right? But if there is a chatbot that is really good, and whether it's a chess playing chatbot, they have trained it with massive volumes of data. That's not our strength. In fact, if that is what you want, we ask our customers, you should be working with that company, not us, because that's not our strength. The moment conversation becomes at the forefront of it, and we have the sources, we have taught Aigo ontology, the concepts of what we are going to be discussing about, and also connect Aigo to any number of your internal systems, external systems, to pull the data back or write the data. All that stuff would really help our customers. So we have taken a different route altogether. So we are never going to be competing with any of them on their whatever standards they have. It's a completely different approach.
Great. Anything else? If not, Srini, I will say thank you, and you are always welcome to come back. In fact, I'm going to bug you to come back when you've got a couple other examples, and certainly a lot more notoriety. If you don't mind stopping the recording at this point, I will release the audience to go, and we'll go from there.